It is now official. CNN projects that Donald Trump has been elected president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris and making a political comeback unlike any in modern American politics.
How did we get here? What in the Alice in Wonderland nightmares is going on right now?
All I can say is how fucking dare you?
If you voted for that man, if you voted for anybody other than Kamala, and you live in one of the states that it was, close, or if you didn't vote, fuck you.
It's not gonna happen.
I chose family. I chose women. I chose America. I love you.
How the fuck is this still happening? All I've ever known politically is hatred.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done with all of this.
I'm sorry. All my friends who are Trump supporters. You don't understand how scared of this man I
am. I can't believe Trump's actually gonna win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm so pissed off. Fuck. 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 God damn it.
It's your choice. Yes. And it's the choice of a new generation.
I'm done with you. I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done with all of this.
Liberal tears are so delicious.
I'm done with you.
I'm done
oh my God.
Oh.
I've never had protein in my life.
The salt must flow.
Yes, I have
gentlemen.
my boyfriends.
Yes, the salt must flow. Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another salty Saturday morning. I am your host, Mr. Kadish, swimming in a sea of liberal tears this fine Saturday. And as always, we have our fantastic panel of nerds with us, starting with the man, the myth, the legend, Dutch Butters himself. How you doing, Mr. Butt?
Working on my dance moves.
Me too.
Going to the club later tonight. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait.
Ooh, here we go.
Brian, I'm very upset right now. I'm very upset for my good friend Brian, because I know as a trans woman, he has to go to fucking Uruguay now to get an abortion. So I'm
going to end up in a concentration camp.
I'm sorry, man.
And get your meds.
What am I going to do without my hormones?
You need to go stock up on the morning after pill.
I've already bought CVS out. I'm ready for the next 4 years.
Did not
I got my IUD.
I saw you running out and the lady running after you.
Brian, when are you going to shave your head like all the other women who are going on sex strikes?
Are you suggesting that you shaved your head for the women that are...
That's right.
I want to know how many...
I'm not having sex anymore until Trump's out of office.
Oh, no. Oh, no. More traditional women will have sex with me. Oh, no.
Wait a minute. There's no downside there. I don't believe that these people think that there's a downside.
They don't think, culture. They don't think.
Yeah,
anyway,
come on.
He's here. He's queer. He's our shield against all things intersectional. And he's also the biggest Disney shareholder on the panel. Brian from the Popcast. Although, should I say Brian from the Brain Show now going forward?
Brian from the Brain Show. We changed the name of our live show to the Brain Show. It's Brian and Shane. That's why it's called Brain. We also thought it'd make us look smart, so we went with that too. Yeah, Brian from the Brain Show. That's my new handle. And I am trans, and I voted for Trump.
All right, that's awesome.
Right. You're a trans lesbian.
Trannies for Trump. Let's go.
Trannies for Trump. And of course, joining us today, a little bit late, but somewhat on time because we had a long intro. Odin from O&B Reviews. Welcome, sir. Christ is King. Good Lord. Thank you, God, for Trump.
Absolutely. It was amazing to watch the things as they panned out, because we were honestly not quite sure whether or not the shadow campaign was going to kick in or not. But hey, turns out when it's too big to rig, things go pretty well. And
they tried, bro. The Republicans, I give it to them this time.
Unless you live in Nevada, there's some shenanigans going on.
There's some shenanigans there.
And Arizona.
They did block a lot of stuff, though.
The guy I was watching for the entire coverage of that was Charlie Kirk, and his coverage, he did an amazing job. And what his team did in Arizona, especially, the fact that Kari Lake is even still in the discussion potentially to pull a win out, it's not, again, a guarantee. It's like a 50-50 shot, is still pretty incredible since no one gave her money.
They also need to look at Colorado, because even though Colorado was deep blue, the fact that all the voting machine passwords were out there for like a month, a little bit suspicious. But welcome, Odin. I'm glad that you could pull yourself away from your pineapple pizza to be here today. It's always kind of you. And of course, Tom Connors Jr. from Midnight's Edge. Thank you for being here today, Tom.
I am here. Why are you reeing at me?
Because you shaved your head for Kamala. I can see that.
I know.
Tom's on a sex strike.
I'm never having sex with another man.
Ever. I'm never doing it.
Ever. Never.
All you men are cut off.
Yeah. What is it? Gary Cezanne. He is very disappointed, Tom.
Why is it that most of those chicks look like me and have deeper voices than me? It's like, I'm not having sex with any man as long as Trump's in office.
We're on the sex ban.
No sex for anybody.
We're on the sex ban, and they're breathing. We're on the sex ban.
And what's funny is they don't need to get an abortion if they're not having sex. So there's that issue is out the window.
It's a double win. It's a double win.
Double win.
Problem solved.
Brian, you had any menstrual cramps lately? How are those going?
They're going great.
Okay, just checking.
And guys, so I know that on the thumbnail and all that stuff, we said that Gary from Nerdrotic was going to be our special guest on the panel today, and I have to really stop announcing who our guest is going to be on the previous episode, because every time I do it, something comes up and they're unable to be on the show. So unfortunately,
this is why we don't put our guests on the title until they're there.
Yes, Gary unfortunately had something come up, so he's not able to. He says that he'll be here next week instead, but we got someone better than Gary. We have Culture Casino.
That's what my dad used to tell me all the time too.
Culture Casino was kind enough to fill in for Gary, and I'm sure Gary's jealous because he's going to have to fill Culture's shoes next week. But Culture, thank you for being here, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. I don't mind being a last minute guest. I'm always have a good time. Plus, I get to see people of faith and character, and that's always a good thing. So thank you.
Yes, but it is funny that we have two people from Nevada and one person from Arizona on the panel, and we are definitely seeing some shenanigans going on in both states.
And Wisconsin, we had a little bit of shenanigans, but we said, no, we're just going to end this thing.
Hey, guys, I'm from California. There are always in the shenanigans here. So
40 counties went red in this election.
Yeah, in California. Yeah, in fact, guys, my county went red.
Nice.
And I have the only coastal, because I live in Orange County, the only coastal county in California that went red. I'm telling you, I felt real good about it. I was like, you know what? We didn't win California, but I felt like our county won, because we went red, like 70+% red.
The best part is now we are the vocal majority, right? And that's the thing, is not only do we get to say you've pissed off half of the country. Oh no, we get to say you've pissed over half of, like closer to 70%
the majority.
Of the country.
Yeah. The funniest thing was all the liberals who were like, "What happened to the 20 million extra voters Biden got?"
We don't want to get your channel taken down, so I don't think we're going to get too deep into that.
When I saw that Reddit thread where at the end of this,
that's why I still won't speak to my grandmother.
At the end of like this 50 comments of people asking the same question, and they had all kinds of theories. It finally gets to a guy who was like, "Guys, I'm starting to think we might have stole the election in 2020."
Yeah, they're just
right.
Out. Yeah,
they'll never figure that one out.
Where are these other 15 million people at?
Where'd they go? Where are they?
Yeah, they just mysteriously disappeared. It was like the rapture happened and nobody noticed.
But it's also, I love the excuse.
Thanos snapped him out of existence.
But like, even if you were to use the excuse of, well, because of COVID regulations and everything like that, but then all you have to do is compare both candidates and you say, well, wait a minute. On the one hand, you have one guy who's matching what he did back then, even with those policies, and now exceeding it. Whereas the other one, obviously, there's still a lot of votes outstanding, but by the end of it, will still ultimately be short of what was made by that other candidate back in 2020.
The most telling is when they go back and they show the vote totals that like Clinton got, the vote totals that Obama got, and the vote totals that Kamala got, and how they're all like kind of like in line with each other, and Biden's the outlier. Yeah. Right. And so it's just like, oh, there were so many shenanigans there. Speaking of shenanigans, guys, we have a big shout out to make to our top donators, Scotty Dub, Brian G, and William Forbus. Thank you guys for being our salty superstars. And big shout out to Scotty Dub for, his major support with super chats and being our top contributor. And of course, Mexican Iron Man as our most consistent super chatter. And who can forget the top gifters? We have the Queen of Gifted Subs, Jillian N. We have Bob Dorsey, Sam Schwager, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg, many of whom are here today. So let's give them a shout out there. We got Ruby Hoove, who just became a YouTube member for the Saturday, or I should say for the Salty Nerd podcast
Ruby.
channel. Welcome, Ruby Hoove. And of course, Queen of Gifted Subs, Jillian N, dropping 5 Salty Nerd podcast memberships right out the gate. And Ruby Hoove even dropped a Salty Nerd podcast membership. Woo-hoo. Really good stuff. And Eric Winberg showing up as always, dropping off his one obligatory Salty Nerd podcast membership. And the Astro Nerd Boy, member for 20 months with a with a members chat. Those leftist tears are so salty. Hell yeah, they are. And Mephisto's movie reviews for 30 whatever Israeli money is. I don't even know.
That's shekels.
Shekels. Okay, 30 shekels. The Sea of Tears must flow. So after the show, come watch us talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Hanks, back when he was in a great movie named Big. Yes, Big. So real quick, guys, our goal right now is to get 20 new members during the stream. That is a Mr. Butts mandate that we go up from 10 to 20. So help us get that. I think we're already at, if I'm not mistaken, 7, 8.
Yep.
Possibly
8, I think.
8. So we only got 12 more to go, guys. Don't let Mr. Butt down. We need to get 12 more gifted memberships or just regular membership signups throughout the course of the show. And of course, don't forget to clip and comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. And stay tuned at the end of this show for Mephisto's movie reviews, because we're going to automatically redirect you to the Real McCoy podcast, where, as Mephisto said in his super chat, they're going to be talking about Big, which is good. And just a reminder, the Brain Show will be on Saturdays from 12:30 Pacific time, aka 3:30 Eastern time, for however long they go, which is usually a long time. And this is different, guys. This is where the Popcast guys throw Popcast aside and just go full political.
Full political.
Hey, Brian, do you have any new social media or anything for that?
We have the new Twitter account, which is @Brain Show, and then my own Twitter, Bex Dota. I found it interesting. Our second show, where it's the Brain Show, full political, and we got our first community violation. Let's go.
Yeah, but guys, for those of you who are watching this show and don't like politics, don't worry. Now that the election season's over, we're going to be getting back to bitching about Hollywood more times than we are going to be talking about Trump and all this other stuff. So,
but not today, though, right?
Not today. Today, if you're sick of politics, don't watch this show. But I really wish Gary was here. No offense to Culture, but I was really looking forward to getting his take on some of this stuff. But we're gonna have to wait till next week to do that, unfortunately. But guys, my fantastic panel of nerds is definitely up to the challenge of dealing with a lot of this stuff. And the biggest thing that we're going to deal with right now is the new Star Wars trilogy that was announced. And guys, this is like just when you thought Lucasfilm couldn't get any dumber, they announced this. So Simon Kinberg has been officially announced to write and produce a brand new Star Wars movie trilogy for Lucasfilm. And I mean, okay, just to give you guys some context, Simon Kinberg, he is responsible for the worst X-Men movie ever made. And that's saying a lot because Brett Ratner made an X-Men movie. But he made Dark Phoenix. And number 2, Mr. Butters. This is the man who is the showrunner, creator, and lead writer of one of our favorite Apple TV shows, Invasion.
love that show.
A movie about an alien invasion where you never get to see the invasion. It's just about stupid people living their lives.
It's a fantastic show, Matthew. How dare you talk crap about it?
Yes,
it's
yeah,
incredible.
But this guy,
that's the one with the little kids and they go find their dad's sex dungeon, right?
Yeah,
in the secret apartment in Paris. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, they walk the tunnel in a couple hours
with the Wajo buttholes floating in the air that they all go through to transport places. And
there's literally an alien butthole that they use to teleport. So
you can swim and they swim through space. The one lady gets
He was also a co-writer on Fanforstic as well.
Yes. His resume
and
is
he wrote the same story twice for X-Men. Never forget that.
His resume is full of really shitty movies that he's been involved in. And so, of course, Kathleen Kennedy decides to hire him to shepherd in the new phase of Star Wars. And I want to point out this article from our friends at That Park Place, which if you guys aren't checking out That Park Place regularly, you really need to, because they are very good journalism over there. But there's a lot of rumors circulating about what exactly Kathleen Kennedy is going to be tapping into Simon Kinberg to do. And so the only thing that we really know for certain is that he has been commissioned to write a Star Wars trilogy of movies. Now, there's some speculation out there that he's going to be doing episodes 10 through 12 of the Skywalker saga. And the rumor is that Daisy Ridley's Rey character is going to be present in that, in the form of like a mentorship character, very similar to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, that has some impact in and of itself. However, in the Hollywood Reporter article, and by the way, links to all this stuff is in the description, so if you guys want to do your own research, you can check out our links there. In the Hollywood Reporter article, they said that this is those rumors are not true. It's going to be a brand new trilogy. It's going to be something completely original with new characters, introducing like a new conflict and all this other stuff. So we don't really know what exactly the plan here is, but we do know that Star Wars has a long history of announcing shit that doesn't go anywhere. And it also puts the Rey movie up in kind of like flux, because basically Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, like she was really big on like writing like the new Jedi Order movie starring Rey. It's going to be a new Rey movie. But if the rumors about this trilogy are true, then it's like, okay, well, what's happening with this movie now? Is Charmin going to be the one directing Simon Kinberg's trilogy, and so on and so forth? But the big thing here that Park Place reports on is that this is going to be Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger's final stab at Star Wars before they both, quote unquote, retire. Now, I'll believe it when I see it. But, there was all those rumors about Indiana Jones 5 going to be the thing that Kathleen Kennedy retires on. But now she wants to go out on top because that was a huge failure. She wants to try to go out on a high and kind of like set the trajectory of Star Wars for the foreseeable future before she leaves. Also, guys, Simon Kinberg was the quote unquote consultant on The Force Awakens. And so like you can thank a lot of the Force Awakens decisions on that. It wasn't just J.J. Abrams, it was J.J. Abrams and apparently Simon Kinberg. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in the article, they also mentioned that Simon Kinberg has been hired by Paramount to oversee the new Star Trek movie series. So first of all, I want to start with you, Mr. Butt.
Mr. Butt, okay.
Mr. Butt. So what do you think about the idea of hiring the genius behind one of the worst Apple TV science fiction shows ever made to shepherd Star Wars into the new era?
Well, I'm not one of these guys that looks at everybody's resume whenever somebody gets talked about on the internet. But when I found out, when you told me that this is the same guy that made the Invasion show, my eyes could not have rolled any further back into my head. It's incredible. And honestly, it's not a surprise to me at all that Kathleen Kennedy and the powers that be over there chose this guy. I mean, I guess he has done some previous Star Wars work with like Rebels and some stuff with Filoni and them. But so I guess he has a little bit of Star Wars history. But still, man, this guy, there's not a lot there that I like, to be perfectly honest with you. But honestly, to me, it's just more nonsense. I mean, they've announced half a dozen things that are currently in development right now, and how many things that they have announced in the past have never come to fruition. So just like anything that comes out of Lucasfilm and from Kathleen Kennedy, I will believe it when I actually see it in front of me on a movie theater screen. So until that time happens, this is just more nonsense out there in the wind, trying to like impress people, trying to impress shareholders and investors and stuff. And hey, we've got stuff going on. We're working on things, So that's it. That's what it is. I think it's just bluster and hot air and bullshit. So,
well, Odin, there's been a big hiatus of Star Wars from the movie theaters ever since the failure that was, Rise of Skywalker. After Solo, Bob Iger basically said, okay, we're going to step back from churning out Star Wars movies. We're going to focus on TV for a while. And of course, now the TV's in the shitter too, because, of the Acolyte and all that stuff. And we've got Skeleton Crew coming out on December 2nd. So that's just around the corner. But that's really like the last big Star Wars thing that it looks like we can expect anytime soon. And Kathleen Kennedy has announced a bajillion different Star Wars projects, and none of them look like they're coming to fruition at this point. And so announcing another one who's, it's a trilogy. Rian Johnson still hasn't even completed his trilogy, even though it's never been announced that it's been canceled. So the question now becomes, it's like, is this basically their renewed focus on really getting stuff back in the theaters? And will Simon Kinberg succeed where so many others have failed?
To the first point, I would just say it sounds like more just hot air being blown from their asses, basically. I mean, this honestly, as soon as I heard this news, I couldn't help but laugh, because I'm like, wait, another trilogy? Wait, another announcement? You're going to make another announcement about more movies when the other films you've already announced haven't even been made or started production or gotten anywhere close to being seemingly greenlit in any way? It becomes just so farcical at that point. So do I think it's going to see the light of day, or that's going to happen? I have a lot of doubts, just because this has been the nature of Lucasfilm, is they have all of these ideas, apparently, when their ideas themselves are not very good ones. And it's not even ideas that they have. It's like basic concepts of, okay, we need to have a Star Wars movie out in theaters. That's the idea. All right, we need a Star Wars movie out there. Okay, who's a good writer? Who's a good director? Okay, let's go ahead and choose those people, and then just say, yeah, we have a Star Wars film coming out. And it's like, that's where they start. It's like, okay, well, what's the story going to be about? Do you have an actual mission for this story? Is it going to push any further narrative that you can then spin off from in the future, especially since this is an IP that they want to obviously, use as a franchise, and they've abysmally dropped that ball in so many different ways. So I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's just nonsensical what they're doing. Now, as far as Kinberg, I gotta give the dude some credit, because yes, he's got mostly terrible movies to his name. Okay, this is the guy who wrote XXX State of the Union, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, X-Men: The Last Stand. He also wrote Jumper, of which was his first producer credit as well. That was a fun film back in the day.
It was
great
fun.
film. I actually enjoy it, but it's not a good movie. It's
not a good movie, but it's a fun movie.
But I enjoy it.
Right.
But then he did Sherlock Holmes, and it was like, ooh, okay, he did the first Sherlock Holmes film. That was a fun movie. I thought that one's pretty cleverly written too. And from there, he kind of just was kind of meandering a bit. I think his best performance of this work was X-Men: Days of Future Past, which he was the sole screenplay writer for, and I thought that was a phenomenal movie too. But then right after that, his next writing gig was Fan 4 Stick. And one could argue, okay, studio interference, a lot of chaos going on with the director and everything like that. Maybe that could have impacted it. I doubt it, but you could at least give that. But then after that, it was X-Men Apocalypse, and then Dark Phoenix. And then he did that boomy. I forgot this movie existed. This is how poorly it did. Y'all remember the 355? Yeah. That came out back in 2022 with the woman spy female, all female spy.
It was basically Fox Force 5 from Pulp Fiction.
Yep. I remember covering it only because I was like, wow, that movie didn't do anything. It made $27 million at the box office.
Yeah, that was a very terrible film. Yeah. And nobody wanted it. And
I will never not remind people that this is the guy who ruined Dark Phoenix twice.
Yes. Yeah, twice. So again, I don't have a lot of high hopes for him. And then his most recent movie was The Killer's Game, which nobody also saw. And that was the one with Batista. In the starring role, because people are still trying to make Batista a thing. I don't think that he's the guy that's going to turn things around, because yes, he's got a couple of good films to his name, but the vast majority are terrible. And we've all seen, even good writers, if as soon as they get put under the Lucasfilm umbrella, they automatically turn to crap.
Well, also to choose him to kind of oversee a trilogy of movies, like, me and Mr. Butters here painstakingly watched 2 full seasons of his Apple TV show Invasion. And that's the show where he had the most creative control ever given to a fucking showrunner. It's like, Apple didn't tell him what to write, how to write, what to do, whatever. They just gave him money and said, go to town. And so that's like the purest form of Kinberg is the show Invasion. And it is one of the worst things you will ever watch. Not because it's necessarily bad, but because it's so insanely boring. It is the most boring show I think I've ever watched.
But it's very diverse. It's very diverse and inclusive.
Oh, it's very diverse and inclusive. And if you ever want to watch a show about alien invasions that has no aliens in it, that's the show to watch. So I want to throw this to Brian real quick.
Hey.
Brian, so Simon Kinberg, he's pulling a J.J. Abrams, where in addition to overseeing Star Wars, he's also overseeing Paramount's new cinematic endeavor into Star Trek. And so basically he's kind of like got, in the article, they said one hand on a lightsaber and the other hand on the Starship Enterprise. And this idea that both Paramount and Disney have hired probably one of the most inconsistently bad writers ever to oversee their 2 biggest science fiction franchises is kind of interesting to me, especially because you and Shane have recently had an experience with Terry Matalas again.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you want to talk about that, but what's your take on this guy not only overseeing the new Star Wars trilogy, but also possibly overseeing the new Star Trek movies?
I mean, I'll wait to pass judgment until I see it, but it doesn't ever work out. The 2 franchises are so different. I know they both have Star in the title, but Star Wars really isn't science fiction. It's like fantasy that just happens to be set in a sort of science fiction. I don't even know if it's the future or galaxy or whatever.
It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Brian.
So it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away with lightsabers and wizards and, it's space wizards. And so while people categorize it as science fiction, it really isn't science fiction because science fiction has some kind of like basis in reality. Star Wars is as far from reality as it gets. So I've always considered it as fantasy. And Star Trek really is science fiction. It's supposed to be set in the future, the same future we are in right now. It's supposed to worry about the laws of physics, and it has the same rules our universe has. There's no force. There's no.
Is it, Brian? Is it our future or one of the alternate timey-wimey?
I don't know. You're asking me a question I don't have the answer to. I believe
that's my job, Mr. Bud.
Okay, sorry. There are 3 timelines in Star Trek, but regardless, the timeline that we all care about is the original timeline where it comes from our future, right? Or a version of our future. It's sort of split off somewhere in the 80s. But whatever it is, it's supposed to be our future. It's supposed to follow our universe's laws and how things work. That's why it's called science fiction. So you doing a science fiction franchise and doing a fantasy franchise are 2 separate things, regardless of whether or not they happen to both have Star in the title. So who knows? It would be interesting to look at it and go, hey, you know what? His Star Wars movie was pretty good. His Star Trek movie sucked, or vice versa. Then you can really tell what this guy's capable of. We talked about Jumper earlier. Jumper is not a good movie, but it's a fun movie. And it has a science fiction-esque.
It's also based on a book series, so it's still not an original property.
That's true, but it's a little more science fiction. So I'm thinking if he's going to do, I think he'll be better at Star Trek than he will at Star Wars. I think Star Wars is a harder. It's funny because like Star Trek should be the harder franchise because you have to pay attention to a lot more canon and stuff. But I think Star Wars is harder because you have to please a lot more people, and you can't just follow canon and be good enough. It's a hard thing to do. Star Trek is hard. And so I think that he'll probably be better at one or the other, but I don't think he'll be good at both. And he probably won't be good at either, to be fair.
Yeah, probably. But I just want to take this moment to publicly shame Terry Matalas. Shame on you, sir. Because he used the fan base to get what he wanted, and now that he doesn't need us anymore, He's blocking numbers. He's
Yep, he blocked my number. He blocked Shane's number. He unfollowed us. The election, we lost a lot of our good friends in the Star Trek.
That's
Hollywood
small dick
realm.
energy.
That's small dick energy. Look, I still love Terry Matalas. I think what he did with Picard season 3 was great. And I think 12 Monkeys is a masterpiece. So I believe in the guy's creative ability, but I think that if his newfound ideology starts to make it into his creative endeavors, then he's gonna fail just like other creatives before him have. One reason he was so good was because he wasn't political. He didn't worry about that. He worried about the story. And now that he's it seems like, at least personally, he's cutting ties because, we're Trump supporters and stuff like that.
I look at Terry as like an opportunist, and he's very savvy when it comes to studio
I'm not
politics.
surprised. I heard from a lot of people, and I didn't say shit when you guys were talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard from a lot of people he's a piece of shit, but that's just me.
Look, when I was sitting in his kitchen eating pizza, talking about the world politics and stuff, he wasn't a piece of shit. He was
what
one of
I
us.
will say.
Well, he'll tell you what you want to hear because he's a salesman. That's what all these producers and creatives are.
As an outsider, all I will say is I think what his actions recently have shown is that he cannot be trusted. And I think that's both creatively and personally. And so I think that's really where we are at this point with him.
I will say that now that he's in the Marvel camp, and because he's doing the Vision show, and you had the Avengers come out unanimously in favor of Kamala Harris, and that these guys are suffering from TDS majorly. I think a lot of this is probably just to protect his own career, cover his own ass when it comes to working with these actors in the Marvel universe, essentially. So I don't think it's malicious necessarily, but I do think that it's very opportunistic.
Brian, I spent a lot of time with the guy. I spent a lot of time with the guy. We talked about a lot of stuff, and he was in that year I spent with him.
He's no good. You can't trust him.
He wasn't an asshole.
No good.
He was a really genuine guy at that time.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Maybe he was just selling me the whole time.
He couldn't have been, or he'd still be here, motherfucker. That's the point.
No, what I'm saying is, I don't know. Maybe he just gave into the brain rot that is in Hollywood. I don't know. But I spent a lot of time with the guy, and either he was selling me and he's a great salesman the entire time, or he's just changed his opinions because he's sitting in like a cesspool of political nonsense.
I just want you guys to be a little bit.
Go ahead.
I just want you guys to be a little bit more, considerate here. They don't like small dick energy. It's micro penis energy. You need to be kinder.
Micro penis.
I apologize.
That's true.
With the XY.
Don't be
chromosome.
ableist,
That was
guys.
almost a microaggression at the same time.
Yeah. And it's a real medical challenge for a lot of people. I understand.
Just you, Brian. That's it.
Brian, I know you guys are.
Listen, this is why I can't go full trans, bro. My penis is just too big. I can't tuck it. I can't tuck it.
Brian, you guys are pretty close with Todd Stashwick. Is he
gotten
weird?
We spent a lot of time with Todd. Todd hasn't blocked us. That's good. He hasn't taken my call in a long time. I'm gonna be honest, but he hasn't blocked us. He's been pretty cordial. I don't know what's going on with Todd. Todd's always been a little bit of a crunchy liberal, to be honest.
No, he has. Yeah, I was just curious.
And when we were hanging out with him, he wasn't shy about his opinions, but he also didn't disrespect ours. Like, we were able to be friends even if we didn't agree on certain things.
All right, cool.
I think he might be a little more of an evolved liberal, where he's going to share his opinions, and I don't think he's going to shut people out because he didn't agree with them. I think Terry definitely did. So.
Getting back to Star Wars, though, I want to throw this to Culture. So, Culture, here is a list of all the upcoming Star Wars films. So we have Simon Kinberg's Star Wars trilogy, The Mandalorian and Grogu, terrible title, by the way. The New Jedi Order, James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie, Lando, which could be a movie, could be a TV show.
Actually,
and also can be a porn.
Yeah,
we wouldn't know.
Didn't Donald Glover already say that's dead?
Yeah, but like they keep saying that it's on the slate. Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie, Taika Waititi's movie, which I had heard
also
had
he said
gotten
he was
canceled.
dead.
Yeah, but that's still on there. Sean Levy's Star Wars movie, which we've heard like zero about.
It just got talked about because he had a successful Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, we got Rogue Squadron, which was canceled. Now apparently it's back.
No.
Then Ryan Johnson's Star Wars trilogy.
Also, no.
That last one is not going to happen.
And there's conflicting reports on this one, and I think you kind of touched upon this, on whether or not this is the Daisy Ridley project that's being replaced, or it's completely different. Because you have all sorts of people going at it about this whole thing.
I want Culture's take on this. Culture, why do you think Lucasfilm, I mean, it's almost a joke at this point, why do you think they have such a hard time announcing Star Wars stuff that actually gets made?
Well, it's a company-wide problem. It's not just Lucasfilm. It's everything. They announce an awful lot of things that don't get done. Disney's notorious for that, down to their theme park division. They've announced many projects that never got made. They've announced whole theme parks that never got made. This is a problem that the Disney company has because they get in over their skis when they're trying to sell something or sell the company to investors. But as far as Star Wars specifically, it's because of the lack of accountability that the lead person at the studio has. Kathleen Kennedy is not held accountable for anything, any of her failures, any of her misguided choices. She's not held accountable for losing, 50 to 75% of the audience. I mean, I came across an article today that I'm going to do a video about where it's, it's coming out of the New York Post. Like, I'm sick of Star Wars. They have produced so much terrible Star Wars that they are announcing things to try to see if they can get interest in something. I believe that's the way Kathleen Kennedy is now doing business. And, she was supposed to have, and people talked about this week, and I'll talk about it again. And your perspectives are appreciated, but she was supposed to be out of a contract at the end of October. That was supposed to be it. And I think you may have even mentioned it before, Matt, but she obviously got an extension because she's still out announcing things. Is she going to get a win? No, but especially not with Star Wars. Everything that's come out of there has done nothing but convince me Star Wars is dead. And if it doesn't get put on a shelf for the next 10 years, it's never going to amount to anything ever again. But why do they announce things that don't get made? Because they have to announce something. It's one of the most valuable properties they've ever purchased, and they managed to make it one of the least valuable ones they control right now. And they did all of that in record time since the purchase date, with everything since the first film that they came up with, which was, The Force Awakens, going downhill from there in box office receipts and in popularity on their streaming platform, which is a giant mistake. And that's all I have.
Well, I've been saying this for years, but the way that executive contracts work in Hollywood is that they have like a normal length of like 2 to 3 years, just in case the studio wants to fire them. So they come up about every 2 years for renewal. They're auto-renewed. But the reason that there's such short contracts is so that there's flexibility in there for the studio or the person whose contract it is to renegotiate. So like if they're doing really well, they could probably get more money. If they're doing really poorly, like they might get fired. Just depends. But with Kathleen Kennedy's contract, her contract's a 2-year contract and it auto renews every 2 years. So every time somebody says like, oh, her contract's coming up, it's coming to an end, I'm just like, dude, it's just going to renew. Like, this isn't news. It's been happening since, Disney bought the company essentially. But I want to throw this to Tom. Tom, so one of the big things about this article in the Hollywood Reporter is they really talk about how both Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger are scrambling to try to get some type of big Star Wars property going because they want that to be part of their legacy, especially Bob Iger, when they step down from their positions. And, it almost feels like a Kamala Harris moment where it's like, like if you're so good at this, why haven't you done this already? So I wanted to get your take on it. What have you been hearing about this new Star Wars trilogy and the role that Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger are playing in it?
I haven't really been hearing anything really other than what you got. And like I said, it just sounds like a whole bunch of people are talking. And let's be real, this originated probably from Kathleen Kennedy's camp or Lucasfilm's camp. We've almost had confirmation on Simon Kinberg was probably one of the people who also most likely leaked it to the press. I don't even know if we've had an official confirmation yet. The Variety version reads like there was somebody who at least denied something through Lucasfilm, which is more than what the Deadline version says. But then you got Jeff Snyder's version, and then you got Puck's version of it. So they're all like variations on the same thing. I don't know what the hell's going on. The only thing I do know about Simon Kinberg is that he is probably most likely to get something done because he knows how to keep his head down and do exactly what he's told. Fan 4 Stick shows that. The X-Men movies show that. Everything he's done in the past, he will do what the studio wants and then apologize to the fans later and thinks he gets away with it that way. Sure, I appreciate it.
That's
when
a
somebody
really
apologizes
good.
for doing something bad, but when you've done the same movie twice and fucked it up, when it's Dark Phoenix, the easiest X-Men story to tell, probably.
Yeah.
That tells me that's alarm bells going off. Now the Paramount thing, I have heard conflicting reports on the Paramount thing too. We've been told in the press leaks, there's the press situation here that he still has to do that first. That comes first. That is priority. He signed up for that already back in May. But then again, that was in May before Skydance was a part of this whole deal. So I've been also hearing that his Star Trek deal is dead, which would explain why he's jumping ship to Star Wars. He was also working on one of the other revivals. Was it I can't remember if it was Stargate or Battlestar Galactica, but somebody knows in the chat. Remind me. So it's not like this guy doesn't dip his toe in everything. He's a producer on anything that's X-Men related already, so he knows how to do the Amy Pascal bullshit with Kathleen Kennedy. And I've even posited, this is my speculation, that he might be somebody she's bringing in to take over creative control of Star Wars in general. Do not forget, this guy was a consultant on The Force Awakens. He worked on Rebels. Actually, I think he was a co-creator of Rebels.
Yeah, he was.
He even wrote on some Clone Wars episodes and other stuff. So this guy has a history with Star Wars and these people and the people that are involved with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what they're doing here is they need some creative leader. They probably don't trust Filoni, or Filoni hasn't had enough experience outside of Star Wars. And Kinberg would make sense. I don't like him, but he's somebody who will do exactly what they tell him to, and that's what they want. We all know that's what Kathleen Kennedy wants. And whether or not this is the Rey trilogy or whether or not this isn't the Rey movie, the Rey movie's something different, nobody gives a fuck. That's how bad this stuff is.
Yep.
We've been talking about The Mandalorian on and off. That movie's coming out in a year and a half. Is that even going to break 500 million at the worldwide box office at the end of the day?
There's no hype right now.
There's
no hype about it.
Yeah. In the Park Place article, they quote a reporter who kind of somewhat broke this story. It's this guy Schneider. He does
Jeff Snyder,
Jeff Snyder. He does the In Snyder newsletter.
That's
And he stated, I think this is Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy and Disney's Bob Iger making one last big Star Wars push before they exit their post next year. And I know Kennedy hasn't formally said anything, but I fully expect her to step down once she has charted a course for the future of the franchise. I disagree with that strongly. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is ever going to step down until she dies. Because basically she can just phone it in, right? She can be the figurehead and she can just oversee other
I don't know if
people's
Culture's
stuff.
heard anything, but I've been hearing some rumors that this might be more of an end, you're right, for Bob Iger than anybody, because there's been rumors about some health issues.
Boom.
If you haven't noticed, he's gone a little quieter.
Yep.
So yeah, go ahead, Culture.
And add to that the fact that he supported no political candidate in this election. He didn't put $1 into Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah, but I think that's because, I mean, it's the same thing with like the newspapers that didn't endorse a candidate. It's because they knew that Trump was going to win and they don't want to publicly, like, admit it and, basically alienate their social elitist friends by coming out and saying that type of thing. So,
well, he's definitely stepping away in many different ways. So I think he's just made peace with the fact. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think, I mean, he might still collect his no-show salary as a consultant at the end of his deal here for running the company. But there's a possibility he may not even do that. Like I said, there's a lot of things happening in the background, as Tom mentions.
Yeah, but I am such a pessimist about Star Wars' future prospects right now.
It's dead.
Well, you'll know how much Bob Iger has to do with this if this gets brought up during the call this week or next week, isn't it? When is it coming up, Culture?
Which thing? I'm sorry. The
Disney.
I think it's this coming week or the following.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's possibly another reason why this was announced. If they highlight all of this, that's why. If Bob doesn't even mention it, then this is Kathleen Kennedy leaking it to the press. There's your answer. They're either together on this or they're apart on this. One of the two.
Yeah. They're trying to pump things up so Brian over there can get excited about his portfolio a little bit.
Oh, I think Trump helped a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah. The next morning, I was able to flip some stuff into the S&P, so I'm happy.
I don't know if I've ever seen a president change that much crap before he's in office.
He's not even in office. It's literally the next morning the stock market rose.
Guys, Dogecoin. Go buy Dogecoin. Do it.
Right I already have. I have 20,000.
Well, you already got Zelensky going. I give up.
Yeah, a week from last Thursday. So next Thursday, the 14th of November, we'll be sitting on our hands, and or on panels and or just watching VR cover this crazy. The level of crazy is going to be insane.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. Trump hasn't even taken office. The migrant caravan that was headed toward the U.S. broke up. Was it
Palestinians
Yemen?
Want peace?
Yemen threw out all the terrorists.
Iran's economy crashed right away, just done. And Saudi Arabia is kicking Hamas out. Oh yeah, okay. Here's the thing, and this bothers me, Odin. And I mentioned this earlier today. Germany was the center of Europe's economy before the EU was formed, right? And the EU was only supposed to be a trade organization at most, right? Instead, they've turned it into a governmental body that has authority over everything with these elites that are unelected driving that thing. Well, Germany was the center of their economy. They stripped Germany of its energy advantage. They stripped them of their economic advantage. They destroyed what that country had within it, which was this amazing economic engine where their citizenry had little, if no debt. And they managed to undermine all of that in the short period of time that the EU has existed. And they just had their government coalition fall apart. They didn't used to have any of these problems. So not only do they have political stability problems, but they also have financial problems. And they were the center of what was once a great idea. Of course.
Yeah, and speaking of financial problems, we got a super chat from the mum for $1.99. Disney call this week. Tom, that won't come up.
Won't. The mum is spot on. She's been killing it today. So, yeah, agreed.
All right, guys. So, we already kind of talked a little bit about the effect that Trump's reelection has had, but let's more specifically target in on Trump's impact on Hollywoke, aka Hollywood. Guys, there's so many delicious, sweet liberal tears flowing since Tuesday. And the Hollywood Reporter actually has a series of articles that we're kind of going to go through for this segment. And again, if those of you who've shown up for Gary Nerdrotic, we apologize. He had to cancel at the last minute. He's going to be on again sometime in the future. But for now, we have Culture Casino, who's even better than Gary. Better beard, anyway. And we're going to be talking about our top story right now, which is basically Hollywood reacts to the second Trump presidency. And I kind of want to have a discussion with the panel about the impact of, Trump not only winning, but getting a mandate through the popular vote and this huge shift. I mean, like if you look at the map of California, even though California went blue again, a big portion of it is way redder than it was last election season. And there's actually been a shift in the sense that a lot of people in the entertainment industry, they used to not be able to publicly wear MAGA hats or whatever. And now, ever since the Trump assassination attempt, I think there's been a shift in that where people are being a lot more tolerant about seeing people in their support for Trump. But one of the interesting things about this election was that a big reason why Donald Trump won was because of his embrace with new media. And we kind of talked about that last week. But in addition to that, it also kind of shows how ineffective a lot of Kamala's celebrity endorsements were. And so the question then becomes, are celebrities even relevant anymore? Is Hollywood even relevant anymore? Because with the mainstream media and all this stuff going against him, he pulled out not just a win, but a massive win, right? So this article right here, Hollywood reacts to the second Trump presidency win, a deep sign of nihilism. This article basically goes through every single major celebrity that you've heard of and their reaction to Donald Trump winning. And it's 90% negative and a lot of liberal tears, a lot of people just being complete, total jerks. in their sore loserness. But there's also these articles here about how Trump won the first quote unquote influencer election. And of course, the Hollywood Reporter is always kind of like bending the story towards anti-Trump stuff, like convicted felon, Nazi, like all that stuff. But Trump one thing that they did point out is that Trump went against the grain. Instead of like doing like 60 Minutes and CBS News and stuff like that, which Kamala was doing, he went to long form podcasts. He went to live streamers, YouTubers, podcasters, influencers, and even like the A-list celebrities, which were really big in helping Kamala and Biden do fundraisers. They actually didn't move the needle a whole lot in terms of their endorsements. And so like the question then becomes, it's like, okay, what good are celebrities in election seasons if nobody listens to them? In fact, this article even points out that celebrities endorsing a political candidate can actually hurt their brand.
Especially if they've been to a Diddy party.
Yeah. Where they like lose followers, where they lose fans, where they basically show bad behavior and basically their celebrity status actually downgrades because of it. And then finally we have the kind of like corporate side of Hollywood, where you have the studio heads and stuff like that. And we've seen stuff from Tim Cook, we've seen stuff from Jeff Bezos, we're also seeing stuff from David Zaslav, and as we mentioned in the last segment, Bob Iger to a certain extent, in the sense that they're actually really happy that Trump won.
Zaslav was a righty.
Because chances are like they're going to see a repeal in regulation. They're going to be able to do better deals. Like they've all been going through austerity measures essentially to try to save money. But now they're looking at the Trump presidency as a brighter future for them to actually start making some money for a change. And so like there's a lot of stuff going on here, guys. But I want to start off with Tom here because it seems like he has a lot to say. Tom, when it comes to the studio end of things with like David Zaslav and stuff like that, how do you think the studios are going to start changing their decision-making process in regards to financing, taxes, regulations, dealing with actors, dealing with unions? And do you think that they're actually going to shift their strategy away from woke propaganda to stuff that people actually want to see, especially with like this huge majority mandate that Trump got in terms of the election?
I think they're going to resist. But people like Zaslav will do fine. Other leaders who aren't as hung up on the crap will do fine. Probably Tom Rothman. Depending on how Paramount rolls out, that one might do okay. The rest of the companies like Disney especially, I don't see them changing their ways. And I've seen plenty of articles that are basically calling, for the people of Hollywood to resist Trump for another 4 years. And it's like, I'm just sitting here going, good. That's just job security for people like us. And if you really want to trash Hollywood that much worse than it already is, we'll just rebuild from the ashes at this point. Because, look, you're right. The celebrity has zero value anymore. If anything, like you pointed out, it hurt Kamala in this race. Because that's the last thing, especially when people are starving, they want to hear is a, rich motherfucker come out there and go, hey, vote for this person. It's like, you don't care about us. You're so disconnected. And that's why Trump won this election beyond the other stuff, right? Is because he actually got out there and connected with people. The McDonald's thing, even though he just thought it was kind of a lark, it ended up becoming one of the main things that helped him win the campaign because people connected to him on a regular level, unlike most politicians when they do this kind of stuff. The garbage thing, right? This time he ran with every punch they threw at him and rolled with it and come back twofold. And then to top it off, I mean, the way the reaction was to the whole Peanut and Fred thing, I think really kind of put a capper on it because let's be real. It's not so much about, the killing of two little animals. It's more about the overreach of government. And who has had this happen to them more than anybody in the last 4 years? So, at this point, even the people are just like, come on, let the guy alone. It's like, you can't tell us that you politicians haven't done stuff that's 10 times worse than anything you're going after him with. You've had a probe up his ass for over 8 years. You'd think by now, if they were able to produce something to get this guy on, they would have done it by now. So I think the American public woke up. They don't care what celebrities think. And that's the other thing is Hollywood and celebrities have killed their own value, right? When you have people coming out there and saying, yeah, there are no movie stars anymore, the superheroes are the movie star, that's a problem. Who gives a shit? Most of these people don't even know who most of these people are. And if they do, it's because these actors are 20 or 30 years in the game. Because most people my age, if you showed them a picture of Timothée Chalamet or Zendaya, unless they've seen the new Spider-Man movie or something like that, they wouldn't know who these kids are. They don't care. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. And nobody ever really listened to politicians in the past. Why would they start now? The only time I can ever think where a politician was helped by celebrity was Bill Clinton. And that's where you could sit there and say Arsenio Hall helped him win the election, because at that point is where he got the attention of Black America. And that's about it. I can't think of any other time.
Well, I want to throw this to Mr. Butt.
Why are you calling me now? That's
that was from Goran Fault. He says,
well, that needs to stop. I don't like it.
Mr. Butt, the future of mainstream media. We now have Twitter, which is basically, I don't know about you guys, but like I was getting all my news election night from Twitter, and it was more accurate than anything on they were literally calling states hours before the mainstream media was, and they were accurate.
Yeah.
We got YouTube and podcasters. Like I was watching YouTube election streams. I was on the D-Day Cobra stream. I was like watching, Megyn Kelly. I was watching all these different streams, getting my new. I spent most of the night on Razorfist stream. Talk about someone who like is just very even-handed with that stuff.
Yeah,
like,
we were watching everything except for the mainstream media stuff.
Yeah. We had Tim Pool on at the studio. It was crazy. But also, so like if you look at this, there's this huge shift away from like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all this stuff, because people just don't trust them anymore. And they're going to sources of news that they actually trust. So Dutch, what do you think is the future of the mainstream media, especially going into new political seasons, like in 4 years from now?
I think the future of just mainstream media is what we're doing right here. This is people. How do I say this? I think you guys all know what I want to say, but I got to figure out how to word it. But the podcasting world, the YouTube world, the independent creator world, the influencer world, that's the future. People don't watch network television anymore. There's much better entertainment out there, and there's way more options for people to get their stuff than the network television channels. I go downstairs, I turn on the TV. I go to YouTube. I don't go to Fox anymore. Or I don't go to NBC or CBS. There's nothing there anymore except repeats of shows that were on 30 years ago now at this point. Some of these, it's wild. It's crazy. We are the future. Nerdrotic is the future. Geeks and Gamers is the future. Odin,
look at me.
Culture,
look
Brian,
at me.
The Brain Show is the future.
We are the media now.
Yeah. I mean, when Trump won the election, when he started going on shows like Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan was the sealer, but Trump was on all these other things before he went on Joe Rogan. Rogan was the bookend, the great big explosion at the end, but my understanding is that it was Barron.
Look at me.
Barron said, "Hey, Dad, you need to go get on these shows. These are where
not Batman did it.
These are where the people who you need to win over are watching and listening and getting their entertainment from." I really do think if that's a true story, then Donald needs to put Barron in a cabinet position somewhere when he's on summer break from college, because he's a smart ass kid.
Minister of memes.
Yeah, for real. Because he's young, he's tuned in, and he knows what's going on out there. And it was wild to see. When Kamala tells Joe Rogan, I'll come on your show, but you have to come to me, and I'm only going to do an hour, and I want editing privileges. It's like
so disrespectful.
It's unbelievable. I mean, that was where this election was won. Was with him going to the alternative media locations to sit down and have long form discussions without an editor in the room, just being real with the host, and that's what people want. So,
well, Dutch, to that point, how Kamala dealt with Joe Rogan, that's how they usually deal with like CBS News or like ABC, like the mainstream media. They were like, okay, you come to us, like with Call Her Daddy. They spent $100,000 to recreate the Call Me Daddy set, so that so that Kamala didn't have to fly out to LA to actually be on the show. Like they flew them out there to their set, so
that's insane. That's insane. So inefficient. Oh my God.
What was hilarious,
dude?
What was hilarious to me was when, you know, you got somebody like Brett Baer on Fox, and he did an interview with her and they followed all her rules. It was a complete and utter cluster. It was just, you know, you want to put a pin in where she may have lost the election herself. That was it. Right. I mean, what a nightmare. Well, it was because they had all these stupid things that they wanted to do.
I mean, that's a primary example of how like the Kamala campaign, which was very entrenched in the traditional media way of doing things, compared to the Trump campaign, which basically like disrupted everything and went in different directions. So I want to throw this to Odin. Odin, basically, Biden and Harris tried to court influencers, right? Like they had like this influencer summit. They brought in all these TikTokers, all these Instagrammers, all these people to the White House. And they were notorious for actually paying these influencers to support them. I think Harry Sisson, you know, like he got paid like that hundreds of thousands of dollars to, you know, be in the Biden Harris camp. The Krasenstein brothers, like all these guys, right?
Cardi
and so
got
like
paid too.
Yeah, well, all the celebrities definitely got paid, but so like you have all these examples of these influencers who are on short form platforms, right? Like platforms like TikTok, platforms like Instagram, and they're getting paid tons of money, which number one hurts their credibility to begin with, right? But then like you see Trump, and Trump went in the exact opposite direction. He went long form, right? He's going on 3-hour podcasts. He's going on live streams. He's basically sitting there with like the Undertaker and Dave Ramsey and you know, like all these guys, and having substantive long form conversations. Lex Friedman, right? Theo Vaughn, like, and these guys, they're asking him all these different questions, right? You know, you have Flagrant with Andrew Schultz, and Andrew Schultz's counterpart is Charlemagne the God, who was like very much in the Kamala camp, right? And so you have these situations where basically Trump, instead of sitting down with a quote unquote credible news organization who basically can edit the fuck out of everything he says and create the narrative that they want to create. Instead, he's going around that and he's doing these things that are unedited. I mean, the JD Vance one, Joe Rogan had audio issues, like technical issues in the middle of the interview that they left in there, right? Like they didn't edit that part out.
Listen, really quick, Matt, I'm sorry, but when JD Vance goes on Joe Rogan and goes, hey man, I'm going to apologize ahead of time because, you know, in the real world, I swear like a sailor. And then he proceeds to drop an F-bomb like 30 seconds later. First time in my life I have ever seen a politician, especially one running for president, drop an F-bomb during an interview. And to me, I'm never going to not vote for JD Vance now.
Yeah. JD Vance is one of us.
He's just one of us. He's a dude, you know, It's just like, it was incredible. It was an incredible moment, you know, and I can say, well, it's because he talks like me, because he's just a dude. But yeah, anyway, Matt, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Getting back to Odin. So like, there's that authenticity factor where when you get to watch Trump completely unedited, long form, outside of the mainstream media narrative, you see him for who he truly is, and you get an understanding of what the policies are that he's advocating for. So I want to ask you, Odin, what do you think is going to be the role of podcasters, YouTubers, and live streamers in future elections? And do you think we'll ever see a change in the debate format where it's just basically the two candidates sitting down in a long form interview, no moderators, and they just have a conversation?
I think this had a huge impact. I think that what the 2016 election really showed was, you know, it was Trump who was the one who was showing the emperor has no clothes by the fact that he wasn't playing by their rules. He was being so much more abrasive than I've ever seen any other candidate be. He was dropping one-liners like a stand-up routine. I mean, like, again, things that no one else would ever do, and people obviously were drawn to that because they said, "Oh, this guy's pretty funny," and hey, he's saying a lot of things that I actually agree with, and though I may not necessarily, enjoy the way in which he's saying some of the things, or think that there's, obviously some problems, like on a personal level, they still were like, you know what? At the end of the day, though, he sounds a lot better than a lot of these other people, so might as well give him some support. And then 2020, of course, was just this cluster of COVID and everything else, and so there's so many things going on. But even then, the fact that he was able to add another 10 million votes after his first term, like receiving the most votes of any sitting president, and now running for office once again to get more than even then, is just an incredible thing to see. And so I think a big part of that absolutely was his going onto these podcasts. Now, how much of an impact is hard to say, because it's kind of those things where it's like, you can't say it's the sole reason, the primary reason why he won, because he won with so many different demographics. And though this was a key component to that younger demographic for sure, which was probably a bigger, portion, he also did really well with so many other parts as well. And so clearly he was just doing all the things right, all the choices he was making, all of the policies that he was speaking to. I think, going almost straight away with the no tax on tips was huge for him, especially in places like Nevada. And it's like, there's so many things that I think he was doing in that capacity. Because if you look to his debate performances, neither of his debate performances were fantastic. Like the first one, Biden beat himself, and then the second one, Kamala was being so obnoxious in her split screen, like, I got to put my hand up here.
Well, and she also got him to go off track by poking at him with the stupid size.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's where she got him.
To me, and I think I've mentioned this before on another stream, to me, that was almost, it reminded me so much of, not that I was alive at this time, but it's always been spoken of the Kennedy-Nixon debate. If you listened to the debate, you thought that Nixon won. If you watched the debate, you thought that Kennedy won because of the image. Same thing. If you listened to the debate, maybe weren't watching it, you would have think that Kamala was having him on the ropes, basically. But if you watched it, you thought, okay, yeah, I can see what she's doing, but oh my gosh, what the hell are you doing? Right? Because you could actually see her reaction in real time with the split screen, and then she just came across as being so incredibly obnoxious. And I think that that's why no one wanted to vote for her, because she clearly does not have a likable personality. So yeah, these podcasts are gonna have a huge portion to play in the future, which I'm excited for, because yeah, I think we're gonna find out a lot more about people in much long form, unedited content. And I think also the people that tend to watch podcasts are much more likely to tell what's the more authentic podcast versus non-authentic. It's funny that now you have a lot of people in the media saying, oh, we need our own left-wing Joe Rogan, which is hilarious to me, because Joe Rogan already is left-wing. Yeah. Like, it's like, wait a minute. If you look at a lot of the policies,
well, that's the cognitive dissonance in the problem.
I know, right? It's like, oh, anyone who happens to like or support someone for a specific candidacy, even if they disagree with them politically, all of a sudden now they're alt-right conservative. It's like, whoa. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Debate-wise, I really do. I hope that it gets back. But it's so funny, because we say if it goes to a point where there's a debate being, moderated on a podcast form, in a lot of ways, it would almost be a return to how things used to be, because it's very reminiscent of a Lincoln Douglas debate.
Yeah.
So like Lincoln Douglas debates were like podcasts before podcasts were a podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's like it was basically the format, but no one was recording it.
Yeah, and I want to point out that there was a push about 20 years ago for a left-wing talk radio network that was spearheaded by Alec Baldwin, Air America, and that failed spectacularly, because nobody, like, liberals don't actually listen to news or talk or anything like that. So it just failed miserably. But I do want to take a little bit of umbrage with your take on the Trump and Kamala debate, because, well, I remember I was kind of surfing on X while I was watching that debate. And people that I really respect, like Jeremy from The Quartering and all these other guys who are commentators and stuff like that, they were just tweeting about how Trump was getting destroyed. And I was sitting there, I was like, am I watching the same debate here? Because when it comes to modern day debates, it's all about the clippable moments. It's not about the actual debate itself. It's about the stuff that everyone who doesn't care to watch the debate is going to hear about the next day. And to me, I was clocking every single clippable moment that Trump was dropping. And even if Kamala was punching him back, her stuff was so bland that it was never going to get clipped. That moment where Trump's like, excuse me, I'm talking right now. That's the type of thing where I look at that, I'm like, that's getting clipped. That's getting shared around tomorrow. And so when you see these influencers taking these moments from these debates and spreading them out far and wide, that's the type of thing that wins the elections. Because most people like below a certain age don't bother to sit there and watch the debates for the most part.
That goes back to what I was saying about perception, though. It's like if you were watching the full debate, listening to what was being said, versus you actually just saw the images, like you're actually watching the actual video itself. But then you have that other component too. I guess I should have mentioned that part as well, right? The other component of if you're just watching clips, because in clips Trump always wins, because Trump is notorious for being able to do memeable things no matter what the circumstances might be.
But the thing that won him that debate, it wasn't even something that he did, where it's the infamous "they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats" moment.
Eating the dogs, eating the cats.
And that guy created that song, and he was an anti-Trumper. He did it to kind of like make fun of Trump, but it went so viral, and it put so much attention on the actual issue, which it ended up being true.
It became a trend.
That people actually were like, oh my God, Trump's right. And it brought that issue to immigration, which was Kamala's weakest point. So it kind of backfired in that sense. But I want to throw this to culture real quick. Culture. So one of the big issues with the debate format, and it's been like this for a long time, is that you have these mainstream media news organizations who are running the debate, and they very obviously have a bias for a certain candidate. Like going back to Candy Crowley when she was moderating the Obama Romney debate, and she literally sided with Obama on live television. That's the moment a lot of people point out that that's where Romney lost. And then you have these debates in this cycle where they were fact checking Trump left and right. They weren't fact checking Kamala, even though she was lying about the very fine people thing and the bloodbath thing, and very obviously easily debunkable lies. And so if you were to remove that aspect of these debates and have a 2-3 hour format where there's no commercials and it's just the people on a YouTube live stream talking to one another, the two candidates actually debating one another in the Lincoln Douglas style. I think that the next day, instead of having all these clippable moments where the candidates are limited to 60 seconds in their responses, you actually have people who will sit down and listen to that entire 3-hour, 2-hour debate format, just like they do with Joe Rogan, and actually become informed about what each candidate stands for. So how do you think long form, kind of direct to consumer formats could potentially shape the future of politics?
I think there's no other way that you should do it. I think that sitting down the two candidates and having a conversation is the only logical thing. Not only that, it would drive ratings, and supposedly profit and ratings are what television is made up for. So, they should be on board with that kind of thing. You would have to have a person there to draw a line if somebody was just filibustering the whole conversation, which is likely to happen. But I think that the American public would reward civility, because that's really kind of what people were looking for in this election, because it's been so incivil. And the media calls everybody out for not believing what they believe. And there's a certain amount of civility that it should be required in society. You should allow people to finish a thought or, be punished for that. And I think that kind of format would reward somebody who is thoughtful. I think you would never end up with somebody like Kamala who can't speak extemporaneously. I think that, go ahead.
No, is it just me or was Trump during the majority of this new last campaign, he seemed way calmer.
Yeah, because he got shot,
and,
bro.
And way less offensive to people than he was in the 2016 and 2020 campaign.
I think he had an introspective moment. I think when he got when they tried to assassinate him, I think that guy was like, "Uh-oh, I need to there's something more serious going on here." I think he changed it up a little bit.
And that's where also I think for him, especially with the podcast part of this, he does really well with that, because it's automatically a much calmer environment. And he does very well just having regular conversations, right? Whereas in the debate format, it's, again, he has those couple of moments, but for people that watch the entire debate, that's why you typically see a lot more split. But obviously, not as important.
But
I would add to that real quick, and then I'll let you get your word in, culture. The thing that really catapulted Trump in 2016 to the head of the Republican Party is that up to that point, Republicans were wet blankets. None of the Republicans fought back against the media. None of the Republicans took their Democratic colleagues to task. Whereas the Democrats on the other side of things were very confrontational. In fact, if you look at the 2008 Republican nomination debates, where you have McCain and Romney, they were brutal to one another. And then the minute one of them got the nomination, they put the kids' gloves on because they didn't want to attack Obama. And that's one of the things that lost them. That's one of the things that was so frustrating about being a Republican back in those days. And then when Trump comes out and he's unafraid to punch back, right? That's the thing that really galvanized the Republican base towards Trump. And to Butter's observation, Trump, like when you see him on Joe Rogan and when you see him on these long form podcasts, that's the normal Donald Trump. Right. The stuff that you're talking about where he's aggressive, he's either edited to be that way, or he's in such a confrontational moment that's being regurgitated across all these different news organizations, like that moment where he had Chuck Schumer in the Oval Office and he's having an argument with him about shutting the government down. Moments where you have the Very Fine People hoax and you have like this huge swath of reporters who just keep asking him like, do you denounce white supremacy? Do you, like, he's been asked that 1,000 times in the same press conference and he's just getting fed up with it. So like there are all these examples of Trump being aggressive that are taken out of context. Whereas the normal Trump is just like that's what you saw on these long form podcasts.
Yeah. But I was just saying, like, it does that in general for all people. Like podcasts in general are much more likely to get like a much more common environment, especially when it's a one-on-one conversation versus having several people. But sorry, Culture, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say context is king. And that in a podcast format, as Odin was pointing out, I mean, that's the same point I was going to make, is the fact that it basically outlines, where everything's coming from, and you can't clip it well. If you do clip it, it's obvious, and it can be shown later, which is the whole reason they didn't want to expose just how edited her interview was with CBS, right? And then of course the debate was with ABC. Man, Disney's corrupt. Holy crap! And then if you add to that the fact that if you have that kind of a conversation, as you suggest, the kind of debate, you just have to harken back to the eloquence with which speeches used to be delivered. And people would tell, the other guy to suck it, only in the most eloquent and polite of ways. I mean, we need that deftness, that ability and utility of language, to have people express themselves in a way that endears them to the public, and with policies at the same time. Which ultimately, I think this was even a failure of policy, because I cannot, for my life, tell you any one of Kamala's policies, whereas I feel like they were all fairly well delineated by Donald Trump. So somebody who wants to argue with me policy, I would say, what are the policies out there that have broad appeal that Kamala was, elucidating? None. So
I think the other thing that bothered me, and I think it might have bothered some people, maybe even on the Democratic side of things, is that Kamala was never primary. Nobody voted for her to be in that position. No. It was just, if she was just inserted in there by the powers that be, she would have been a complete and total puppet had she gotten in there, because she's not a beholden to anyone.
Yeah, she was installed.
Those people, she was installed.
The same people that are like, we need to protect democracy by voting for Kamala.
Butters, what's interesting about that is that it's coming out today, now that the dust is settling, that Joe Biden, he was being pushed out. I'm going to throw this to Brian in a second. He was being pushed out. He knew he was being pushed out. So he preemptively endorsed Obama, or not Obama. Well, technically Obama, Kamala. And basically because Nancy Pelosi and Obama were trying to get to an open primary where they could get someone like Gavin Newsom or something like that in there. And Biden's like, oh, if you're going to push me out, I'm sticking you with her, because one of the big reasons he selected her was because he didn't want a vice president who would outshine him, and he's such an idiot that they needed to get a super idiot to be his vice president. And so now all the behind the scenes shenanigans are coming out, where basically Biden, being upset that he was being forced to step down, basically threw Kamala into his position because he knew she was a loser. And I think that he specifically did things throughout the campaign to purposely sabotage her.
Like putting the Trump hat on?
Not only that, the whole thing had to do with money. The whole thing had to do with money, right? So like at the end of the day, the funny thing I find is funny is she's in so much debt right now. It's hilarious. So they did this because they used her, because that's the only way they had access to that money. And now she's in debt and overspent.
Well, they basically spent, they were $20 million in debt when they ended the campaign. And that's just typical Democrat spending. Like they have no idea about financial discipline whatsoever. And then Trump came out this morning and says like, hey, I have lots of money left over. I'll pay off your debt. Yeah.
Nice.
And
Wow.
just like one last troll, right? One last troll.
Right.
But Brian, I want to throw this to you because I want to talk a little bit about the celebrity stuff. And I noticed that you shared something here.
This is this is what's happening today. Biden is very happy for some reason. Every time he does an interview, every
he's all of a
time
sudden
there's
cognizant too. Did you notice
yeah,
that?
yeah, he's like very aware. He's smiling. He's like, "Hey, folks,
Like,
how's
what
everyone
I
going?"
can do ABC.
Everyone is so upset except for Biden. Anyone find that interesting at all?
That speech he gave was probably the most cognizant speech he's given in 3.5 years.
Right.
I was like, is this AI? Because like he sounds like he's actually together for a change. But Brian, I want to throw this to you.
They nominated and elected the right guy.
I want to throw this to you about the celebrity endorsements here. So like the campaign season started off with Taylor Swift throwing her support behind Kamala. And that was like, quote unquote, a big deal because she's like one of the biggest superstars in the world right now. Right. And then the big thing that sunk Biden was George Clooney and his op-ed, right? Because he basically threw this big fundraiser for Biden. And then he comes out after the debate and he's like, hey, I noticed when I was throwing my fundraiser that Biden wasn't all there. I'm worried that he's not going to be able to, close the deal. I think we need to replace him. And so Clooney threw his star power behind, Kamala, essentially like, installing a new candidate. And then you saw a lot of celebrities come out of the woodwork for Kamala, all of which were paid. Beyonce got something like $1 million for giving her 7-minute speech, didn't even perform. You have Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Julia Roberts, like all these people who are just coming out of the woodwork, throwing their celebrity endorsements behind Kamala. And yet it seems like with each and every person who came out and used their celebrity to try to endorse her, it just worked to the opposite effect. Like you have the entire cast of the Avengers come out with their weird down with democracy thing.
So
it's like
I'm Kamala Harris. Let's tear down democracy.
And it was so strange because like their whole argument against Donald Trump was that he was a threat to democracy, and then you have the Avengers come out. It's like tear down democracy, and it was like the messaging here not quite lining up. You had Mark Cuban. Right, where the Kamala campaign actively told him stop going out and pitching for us because you're fucking it up.
Yeah, so it's like, please stop.
Yeah,
it was really weird because they were like going, "Are you down with democracy?" But like it came out down with democracy. It was
And that's when War Machine was like, tear down democracy.
Yeah,
this is not the right message, guys.
Yeah, so Brian, you have this weird dichotomy here that the Hollywood Reporter is calling out, where it's like you have the average everyday quote unquote influencers, right? You have people like Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, Aiden Ross, the Paul brothers, Jake Paul and Logan Paul. You have all these guys who seem just a lot more accessible to the average, person versus these A-list Hollywood celebrities who are like, up in their liberal ivory towers, like looking down upon people who can't afford groceries and saying like, oh, you need to vote for more of this for the next 4 years. What do you think this tells Hollywood about, number one, their position in the cultural landscape right now? Number two, the future of celebrity endorsements in politics? Because it seems like they're more for fundraising than they are for actually changing people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, the argument about the fundraising thing is, I think one reason why Biden or Kamala ended up being installed was because they had raised so much money. So that was one of the, I guess the supporting principles behind not running an open primary was, oh, we have all this money. It can only go to either Joe or Kamala. And so that's one reason why she was installed versus an open primary. When it comes to the celebrities that are raising funds, I don't think that it's the most money wins elections anymore. I think that there's more than just raising as an insane amount of money and getting people that low information voters believe in to repeat or parrot your talking points. I think now it requires a little more finesse. And what Trump did with the McDonald's thing. Brilliant.
That was great.
Brilliant. First off, it had people like us who support him already cheering and sharing and making memes and just going crazy. I remember one meme: if I'm elected, ice cream machines will always work. Like, that was on TikTok. People were sharing it like he actually said it, even though he didn't. And then you have the other side who hates him, self-owning themselves, being like, guys, this was not real. This was staged. And the people that are in the middle are like, yeah, it's staged, you idiot. Why am I following you again? You're just
a publicity stunt.
You're stupid.
Yeah, like the fact check that he didn't actually work at McDonald's.
Yes. There are a bunch of people in the middle that had not decided either way, or they're not political. They're like, yeah, of course he didn't work at McDonald's. What are you, insane? So there are people that are waking up to how ridiculous the leftist propaganda machine is because of this. You want to call it trolling, but I think it's just finesse. Look, when Joe Biden came out and said his supporters are garbage, and the next day, 12 hours later, they had a garbage truck on the tarmac ready for him to get that photo up. Brilliant.
He's wearing a garbage man outfit on stage at the rallies.
And then he comes out on the rally and he's honest with people. He's honest with people, and he goes, you know, I didn't want to wear this garbage thing. I want to wear my jacket, but they said this makes me look slimmer. So they got me. So he comes out and he tells people exactly what happened. They wanted to do this. These great guys, they got this truck quickly. He's not trying to spin it into something more than exactly what it was. And then he personalizes himself, or whatever the word is, by saying, I didn't want to wear this, but they said I should, and they got me by telling me it looks skinny. So now you have this guy who is all for America, all for helping people, and the side that is against you, that is elite, that is on their hill, is telling you differently. And you're this guy who is just personally telling his story, like there wasn't an entire team behind doing it. It's just a brilliant strategy, and it's interesting. The strategy, ready, is be honest. Just be honest and work hard. That's his strategy. He was just being honest. Everything about Trump is honest. And some of the stuff he says that's honest, you don't like. Some of the stuff that most of us say that is honest, you might not like everything I say. But it's honest. So you can end up liking him for exactly who he is. Who knows who Kamala Harris is? Everything is edited. Everything is clipped together. Everything is structured and controlled. There's nothing honest about it. Meanwhile, Trump is on Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, doing 3-hour podcast, 900 rallies where he just talks. I mean, celebrities aren't going to run shit anymore, and I'll tell you why. Because no one is taking real advice from Cardi B.
No.
Okay? Cardi B gets up there. Even if you're a fan of Cardi B, you aren't a fan of her because she's smart, because she's informed. You're not a fan of her because of any other reason other than you like her music or you think she's attractive. Nothing to do with how you want to make your decisions. I'm sorry, but none of the celebrities that endorsed Trump are people that I look to, even if I'm a fan, as I want to make informed decisions based on their opinions. No, I might like them because of their music or whatever, but not because I want to make informed decisions based on their opinions. Meanwhile, you have someone like Joe Rogan, Dana White, Theo Vaughn, people that are successful despite their celebrity, that have ideas and opinions that I agree with. Elon Musk, who I think is a super genius. I'm sorry, Space Daddy all the way. I'm a super simp for that guy.
Occupy Mars, man.
You have people who I actually look up to because of their decisions, because of their intelligence, endorsing Trump. So you have one side with all these really hardworking, intelligent entrepreneurs, and the other side with a bunch of vapid, no-brain, low-information celebrities. This is not a hard decision to make.
No. I feel like Culture's been chomping at the bit to say something.
Go ahead, Culture. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody listens to a celebrity anymore. I don't think anybody in their right mind. If you've ever listened to them speak extemporaneously, notice I'm using that word a lot, but to me, it's important to be able to speak.
I don't know what that word means.
You're speaking off the cuff. like without prepared, information and such. You don't have a script in front of you. When the teleprompter breaks and you have to like talk to people, and none of them can do it. I mean, we saw it multiple times.
You sit there for 2 minutes like Cardi B.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Or Kamala and say, what did she say? Like 34, or 28 or something for like 37 times in a row. Anyway,
What you're saying is Brian would be a great politician.
Yeah. No,
I don't think I would because I have so many skeletons in my closet. You can build an army.
Well, I think that's all fine too. But in looking at it all, I mean, I'm still seeing the people who are disconnected from reality remaining disconnected from reality. They can't identify why they lost. They're still calling everybody racist. You can't call the black men and the black women and the Jewish people and whoever else racist and misogynist and everything else to explain away the loss. The loss was just a lack of believability by one of the candidates, somebody who could not, again, get across whatever policy they were talking about, because they weren't talking policy. They were running on the you hate this guy, right? Because we hate this guy. It's good to hate this guy. This guy's bad. I also think by going the new media route, he was able to dispel a lot of these like narratives that Kamala tried launching, like the whole like Trump is Hitler, like literally Hitler. He's a threat to democracy. And like when you see him sit down and answer questions and just have a chat, like on Joe Rogan, where they were talking about boxing and MMA for like a good 10 minutes, right?
My brain tunes out whenever they talk about the MMA stuff. I'm just like,
yeah. But for a lot of people, especially Joe Rogan's crowd, that's the type of thing that's relatable. Right. When he sits down with the Undertaker and Kane and talks about the WWE and things like that, it's hard to look at him as Hitler when you see him acting like a normal, funny, interesting dude.
Yeah. Plus, he has an African American on his staff.
Or when
Elon
he talks. Or when he talks about, that's a good joke, or when he talks about loving this country. This man loves this country. He talks about it all the time.
But I mean, just look at what they tried to do with that Liz Cheney line, when he was on stage with Tucker Carlson. He was like, like Liz Cheney is a war hawk. She'd never like if you put her up on stage with like a rifle and facing an enemy army, but it didn't sell because there was so much new media that basically instantly debunked that. Because the minute he said that, you saw Kamala's camp come out, all of her surrogates, all the mainstream news sites tried to pull that thing about editing it out of context. And every single person who listened to Trump on Joe Rogan, and Joe retweeted the actual like unedited clip, everyone was like, oh wow, they're lying to us.
Yeah. What else Space Daddy bought Twitter. You can't lie.
Yeah, and
you can't lie anymore. You can't just, here's the only piece of information you get to see. No, we're all going to flood that system with the actual clips so you can see the whole information.
Real quick, guys. So in 2016, when Trump first got elected, you saw this big shift in Hollywood where basically there were all these allegories for like MAGA voters and like Trump supporters and all this stuff. Famously, Star Trek Discovery, where it's like the Klingons are representative of MAGA supporters, and like you saw in the Orville, right? Like you had this one like Trump surrogate in there for the evil alien race, and all these things where like Hollywood tried to like subvertly put in anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-Republican messages into their stuff. And now, do you think that because there was like such a huge swing, not just, I think a lot of people kind of sleep on the fact that a lot of the states that still went blue saw a huge shift towards the red, right? Like they didn't win, they didn't go blue by a huge margin like they used to, right? So the question is like, are the people in Hollywood going to pick up on that and pull away from like the woke bullshit propaganda crap that they've been pumping out for like the last 8 years? Do you, just to the panel in general, do you guys think that's going to happen?
Maybe the celebrities aren't, but I think that the people in charge of the money that are actually paying these people, they're going to. I mean, look, hey, the majority of the country doesn't feel your way. No wonder why you're losing money. Hey, why are we losing money? Because we're making content for people that don't exist, essentially. So like, if you want to make money, you want to sell a product that most people want to buy. Not in a tiny little percent of people. And the people that voted for Kamala, there's plenty of people that voted for Kamala that also don't like that content. So you are making content, and we've talked about this before. You're making content for a tiny percentage of America. Hello.
And I would say Kamala made the same mistake Kathleen Kennedy did, which is she tried to go straight girl brand, completely ignored the men, right? And when the men didn't show up, they were like, why aren't men voting for us? Why aren't young men voting for us? You know?
Right.
It's like, hey, get Tim Waltz out there because he's the bastion of masculinity that's going to like attract young men.
Yeah. Where did they find this guy?
Jesus. Talk about a mistake.
He didn't even win his own county.
They couldn't. She could not get Shapiro as VP though because she was trying to pander to the Gaza Strip vote, dude.
Yeah.
Speaking of pandering, guys, we got some super chats to get to real quick. Foxhound for £1.99, $1.99. Trump landside. Let's fucking go. Yes, indeed. And guys, I hate to do this to you yet again, but I have to use my Asian accent.
Oh no!
Or you fucked that cow.
Oh my god!
Kamala pay for endorsements.
Yeah. Oh, Kamala pay for endorsements. Now 20 million in debt. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you fucked that guy. Oh my god! This guy must watch my podcast because I told a story about a guy who was trying to buy my car the other day whose real name was Fook Dat Cow.
Okay, so it's you fook that cow. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's funny.
Wow.
All right, decriminalize adulthood for $10. The most gullible people in the world are those who still believe the science. If you can't let go of a cold, even 5 years after the fact, you are more clueless than Kamala's campaign staff. Yes. I'd have to agree with you on that, decriminalize adulthood. And then we got Darth Maul's lower half for €2, I should say. And the left simply can't meme. Oh, the left's so bad at memeing.
They're so bad at it. Oh my god.
No,
it's almost like they don't have a sense of humor.
Yeah, but on TikTok, they're so funny.
Yeah,
it's everything they do is so cringe. It's like I'm watching this is cringe. You know what I love to do on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. The second I see the hyper left cringe, I hit the comment section because that very first comment that's been upvoted by 12,000 people is gold every time.
Yeah. Did you guys see that one TikTok video? I think it was Instagram or TikTok. And it had the Hispanic guy who's all upset. He's crying. He's like, I just can't believe they're going to come and deport my mother-in-law at 721 Green Building. It was so good. It was so good.
Brilliant, bro.
Hey, guys,
what about the guy who was like...
Speaking of so good, we got Narasu813 for $5. Do not mess with the Amish. At least 80,000 could be 150 in Pennsylvania, and 20% of Catholics swung to the right.
Yeah.
And Jill Biden wore red. Well, crazy times.
Yeah, that is one thing they noticed. But as far as the Amish, and I can speak a little bit to that being the second, I think, largest Amish community in America in Wisconsin. And that's where I think Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, part of the reason it went so red was because of the Amish. And let's be clear, the Amish don't watch TV. They don't have YouTube. They don't have X. They don't care about the new media or the old media for that matter. All they knew is that either A, their rights were being taken away in some way, or their religion was being threatened in some way, or B, they needed money. And let me tell you, if they had been broke the last 4 years, that is what got them out in droves.
100%.
I guarantee it, because they don't care about all this other stuff.
Shout out to Scott Pressler for reaching out to them and educating them. Real quick, Randall Orser, members for 13 months. Ooh, I have a member. Congrats, America. Here's to better days ahead. You now have Trudeau, aka the head of Canada, running scared. Let's make Canada great again.
Yeah, that'd be something if there was like a red wave goes through Canada whenever they go through
that'd be funny.
Next election.
March 47, member for 15 months. The Liz Cheney firing squad BS got me riled up bad. You weren't alone in that, March 47. Yeah. That was some real BS right there.
The thing that really gets me is the fact that they not just that, but they continue to talk about they were good people on both sides. Like, that is the one that I just, honestly, it's insane that anyone still tries to push
Can you believe this? He said there were good people on both sides.
Debunked by Snopes. How desperate they were this time, right?
Years after the fact, too.
Yeah, debunked by Snopes, of all people. Philip A. Dimmick for $2. My only disappointment was no Harris P. Diddy sex tape.
Never say never.
I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure it's out there. She was running wild with Montel Williams back in that time, so... Tunushi for €5. They allow ice cream machine repairs, so the Don got the machines working even before getting elected. Donald helped out Ronald. Interesting.
That's a
Yeah,
good
this
point,
is actually
though.
something that I think happened during his first years of. Because for those who don't
that's a good
know,
point.
this was
right
a big
right to
thing.
repair.
Everybody figured this out. Like, they couldn't figure out why the McDonald's ice cream machines weren't working. What it boiled down to, the shortest version I can explain to this is, they were a proprietary machine and they could only allow their guys to come in and work on it. So they would have to make an appointment, and it would take a week or so for a guy to come in and look at it, and he'd fix it, and then it would go right back to being broke again. Because guess what they figured out the problem was? They were overfilling the hopper, and the hopper is the thing where you put in the actual liquid for the ice cream. And what it would happen is once it would freeze, it would go over the line it was supposed to go on. Now, some people were smart enough and they figured this out, so they just stopped filling it all the way up. They'd leave about that much gap room at the top, and their ice cream machine would work just fine, no problem. But yeah, there was this big hullabaloo about it because somebody had figured out a hack to fix the machine, and McDonald's threatened anybody who used that hack that they would no longer be able to use their machine. It was a big thing, and they finally figured it all out. It's actually been fixed for a while.
The right to repair thing was actually spearheaded by a YouTuber. I'm forgetting his name right now.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, listen, that's a big deal.
The guy that was saying he wanted to fix his Tesla vehicles and stuff, right?
But then they ended up stealing that person's original program to fix the machines anyway, which was also I think funny.
Yeah. Okay, guys, moving on. Kalikioki for $5. This is by far has to be the most pathetic Democratic campaign in history. Do you think she was a scapegoat to push her out for someone better in 2028? I doubt that she would have actually made it past the primaries for the next election round, because she didn't even make it to Iowa the first time she ran for president. Right. And she is a terrible candidate. Did you guys see that compilation where it's like she's just given the same speech, same mannerisms, same gestures? Speech
just
after speech,
but she did change her accent depending on where she was at. Right?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one they're running will be Gavin Newsom, 100%.
John Apocalypse for £5. Kamala Harris was like an IRL Woody doll. Pull a string, and instead of the snake in the boot, she says, "I grew up in a middle class family.
I grew up in a middle class family.
I had a yard." Yeah,
I grew up in a middle class family.
I just got to say, I'm glad that we're not burdened by what has been anymore.
Yes,
unburdened.
Another one from Kalichioki for $2. 2024 campaign: authenticity equals Trump fake equals Kamala.
Yeah.
And then we got Randall Orser for Canadian $6.99. Thank you, sir. Did you see Pacman whining about losing 5,000 subscribers overnight, plus losing members? Many other left-leaning YouTubers lost subscribers too. Actually, Randall, one of the things we didn't talk about in this last section that Hollywood Reporter pointed out is that even though some of these guys are losing subscribers after the election, and I think a lot of those are just Republicans who are following them to kind of fact check them and stuff like that. A lot of these guys, especially people like Harry Sisson, got huge growth on their accounts, like upwards of 200,000 people. So I think that that's a little bit misleading that they're complaining about losing subscribers and stuff like that. But David Pacman in particular is a real piece of shit. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if he loses stuff. Ian Carroll is a member for 1 month. As a Minnesotan, I can confirm Waltz is a piece of shit. It's no surprise he didn't win his own county. Well, Tamponton, he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Vote him out in 2026.
Yep. And Goran Falth for 50, was it?
Kroners.
50 crones. So your government is going to go to the moon now. Didn't Biden admin try to shut SpaceX down? Yeah, well, I don't know if they tried to shut them down, but
there was talk about Space Daddy.
Yeah, there was talk about trying to revoke some of their government contracts. Elon Musk put everything on the line on this election. Like if it had not gone his way, he would have paid a huge cost for
what did he
that.
say on Rogan? Rogan was like, "Well, if he's enemy number one, you're enemy number two." And Elon was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in trouble."
Well, one of my favorite Elon Musk stories was actually from a podcast Rogan did after the fact, where he says that apparently Elon made an app, and the app was like tracking real-time vote data, and so like he came apparently to Mar-a-Lago and was like, "Oh yeah, huh? Oh yeah, he won." And called it before anyone else because he was like, he saw all the data.
He actually tweeted, Elon tweeted this morning, Odin. He said that app was X. he was just looking at his timeline on X, and he also had people calling him from his super PAC who were tracking the real time voting data.
Okay.
So between X and the America super PAC, like he was getting like all the numbers like as they came in, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we've got this in the bag." But it is interesting because there was all this talk about how Elon was an idiot for buying Twitter because Twitter's valuation came down. He even talked about this on Joe Rogan, where he paid $44 billion for it, and it wasn't worth like twice that much. And so like a lot of people are saying it was a bad investment. But then I saw a tweet from someone else who said Elon paid $44 billion to control all 3 branches of the United States government. I was like, that's big brain energy right there.
And appoint the next 2 justices, which will make the Supreme Court totally lopsided in our favor.
Yeah. And guys, Mark Dolly for $5. I bought Tim Waltz's service weapon at a gun show. I may have overpaid, but it's in good condition. Never been fired and only dropped once.
Boom. Was he in the French army?
Might have been. He certainly acts like a knucklehead enough to be in there. Guys, real quick, I want to get to one more story before we call it a day. I want to thank everyone who basically tuned in for Nerdrotic and stuck around for us knuckleheads. Instead, he will be on next week, hopefully. But guys, I want to talk about Amazon announcing a new Mass Effect adaptation.
Hell yes.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am a big fan of the original Mass Effect game.
Same.
It was one of the best games I ever played. Mass Effect 2 I thought was okay. The third game really dropped the ball, but it was still kind of like fun, but the story just wasn't there. But basically, Variety is reporting that Amazon hired the Fast and Furious 9 writer, that guy, the Shakespeare of our time, to come in and develop a TV show based around Mass Effect. And I feel like, so like we have the template of what not to do in Halo, right, in terms of a video game to TV adaptation. And then we have Fallout, which it actually does a really good job of adapting, the video game to a TV format. And so the question now becomes, it's like, okay, which format are they going to follow with the Mass Effect game? Is it going to be more Halo or is it going to be more Fallout? So Brian, what's your take on this?
Okay, first off, I'm with you, bro. The best console game I have ever played, hands down, is Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, and someone said in chat Mass Effect 3 was fine. It was fine.
It was fine.
It was fine.
It was fine.
The ending sucked.
And well, it depends on which one you chose, right?
They all suck.
endings. They all sort of suck. Yeah. but the game, like the mechanics, the characters, the story, the way you sort of chose your own path, the way you can completely avoid the actual story and just explore planets. I mean, totally ahead of its time. Really great game. Great story. If it's like Fallout, then this is going to be the next great franchise. If it's like Halo, then there will never be another Mass Effect TV show or movie or anything based on this franchise again. So I'm really hoping that it's done well, that you have someone, and I'm not saying Glenn Powell, but like give me an actor who has Glenn Powell energy, someone who can be a badass, but also have some kind of personality, be charming. And that's the first step. You pick the right leaning man, and you can give us. You've already got about 30% of the work done. You just gotta get the right guy, and then write it like it's written in the games. Right, Mass Effect. It's a team-based game. Even though you're playing as one person, it's an entire team of people with different personalities that are trying to save the universe. This is not a bad idea. This is a great idea, and I don't think it's gonna be very hard to do if you pick the right people.
And culture, with Star Trek and Star Wars kind of like having been destroyed, I think people are hungry for a brand new science fantasy epic kind of IP. And Mass Effect, out of all the stuff out there, has that potential. Do you think that if Amazon nails this, that this could be the next big, kind of Game of Thrones level series, but for sci-fi?
Yeah, but with Jennifer Salke at the helm, I doubt that'll be possible to nail anything. Oftentimes when they make something original, it's not good. If it's made by somebody else, it's great. I'm thinking about Halo right now and how destructive that was to, anybody's enjoyment of Halo going forward. I do not want that to happen to what's left of Mass Effect. We already know what they're capable of now as far as the games go. I really don't want that to leak into the television show. Could they certainly do, as Brian suggests, deliver something that is compelling with great performances from, quality actors like Glenn Powell or somebody else? I think it would be great, but they have to get a standout Commander Shepard. But have we already seen a casting on this? Do we know it's going to be a male Shepard?
They just announced that it's in development.
Yeah.
To be fair, the developer isn't one of those DEI guys. He might not be a Shakespeare, but
here's what we don't know. We don't know if it's going to be a male a male or a femme Shepard.
Oh, that's true. You could have picked that.
And you could end up with, another girl boss show that drives things in the wrong direction. Look, you could play as either Shepard. I don't care. It didn't matter. I played as both.
If they get the actual voice, the chick that voiced Miranda, I'm in no matter what.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Will they be consistent with the original game, or will they go modern audience, unappealing? Wear a potato sack as a fucking outfit costume. Sorry, I get a little frustrated because I'm sick and tired of them taking all of the aspects of the game out of it, including the aesthetics of the game, away. I mean, Florence Pugh, probably had reason to wear saggy pants as in her characters, but who didn't? Scarlett Johansson. So we need to get back to
Brian,
presenting characters as they're supposed to be presented.
Brian, it's funny because Yvonne Straczynski or Straczynski.
That's her name. I can't say her name.
When she did the modeling for Mass Effect 2, she was about 20 years younger. So I don't know if she might be up for that role, because I recently watched her in Teacup.
She doesn't have that Miranda booty anymore.
Yeah, but she still looks really good.
Yeah, she's a good woman.
Here's what I know right now, and I feel like I'm over on my other channel, over on the Salty Nerd Gaming channel. If you go to Steam right now, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is all 3 games plus downloadable, plus the DLC, is on sale for $8.99.
Yeah,
wow.
For all 3 games. I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it right now.
It's great. So, yeah, especially the first one. It's great. But Odin, one of the interesting things about Mass Effect is it's a BioWare IP, and when they did their new launch of Mass Effect on Andromeda, which is basically like a brand new kind of offshoot of the original Mass Effect, there was so much woke crap in that video game. It was kind of like the start of the wokenizing of video games, in my opinion. Like they had, you'd walk up to someone, they'd give you their backstory of being a transgender space explorer and stuff like that. I'm not joking. And so I'm wondering, with Amazon, being the studio behind this, if they go woke with this thing, it could be a disaster. But it also, if they give the fans what they want, this could be the next big IP that Amazon really exploits. What's your take on this?
I would have to say I simply agree. I'm not much of a gamer, so I don't have a lot of knowledge in this space. But if you give the fans what they want, typically they show up for it pretty strongly.
Yeah, and Tom, do you think Amazon will fuck this up?
Most likely, unless they have nothing. I don't really follow the video gaming stuff in Mass Effect and all that stuff. Are they producing it themselves, or is somebody else producing it and they're just picking it up?
Amazon's producing it.
Then it's fucked.
I mean, was Fallout fucked?
No,
Well,
I don't think so.
I mean, I know that it did well, but I know there was a lot of game fans that weren't fans of the.
I played all the Fallout games and I loved it. I know it wasn't.
I'm just speaking from what people
You also
said.
tend to like some bad things sometimes, Brian.
No, it's a dude. I'm sorry.
Fallout
was good. Generally across the board, it was a good show. Not just because I like explosions and shit. It was good.
Yeah,
it was. You gotta admit, it was good.
No, I liked it. The guys behind Westworld were the ones behind that one. I liked Westworld too.
I couldn't finish it.
It got a little long in the tooth towards the end there. But guys, I want to get to some super chats real quick. We got Fluffy Panda, a member for 18 months. If they mess up Mass Effect after what happened with Dragon Age, you guys
thing.
Yeah, you guys have heard Dragon Age Veilguard's controversy.
It's really funny watching some of our friends play through it with these big, giant, ugly trans characters.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
And another $5 from Fluffy Panda. Watching hockey. Actually, Brian's favorite sport is hockey. In fact, he likes a lot of the puck. He loves getting batted around with men's sticks. XOXOXO. This is your fan club, Brian. Fluffy Panda for $5.
Thank you, Fluffy. Appreciate it.
And of course, Goran Falth for 50 krones. Yvonne Strahovski is a goddess. Chuck and Dexter made me love her. She is great. Check out Teacup if you guys haven't seen it. It's on the cock.
She is gorgeous. My God.
It's a really good show, actually. Really good show. And coming in clutch at the last minute, Astro Nerd Boy for $10.
Hey.
The Fallout show was entertaining, but it broke lore, starting with Shady Sands getting moved. Yeah, I feel like much like gender, Fallout's lore is quite fluid, just with BioWare in particular. But guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel nerds for being here, and hopefully Gary will be able to join us next week. I'm going to have to do some reshuffling on our schedule, but we'll see how it goes. Odin of OMB Reviews, any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
You can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, also over on X. And final thoughts would be, oh my goodness, Arizona, how in the hell do you function as a state if you can't even count your votes?
Yeah.
That's it for me.
I mean, Arizona and Nevada are kind of like in the same category there.
It's something to do with the desert, I guess. I think it's I guess.
There's so many shenanigans going on in Arizona, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's another shenanigans that came up today where maybe U.S. Marshals need to get involved. Wow. They replaced everybody in Arizona except they're still slow counting the Kari Lake thing because it looks like they injected votes in Pima County after. Oh yeah, that based on some paperwork that shuffled through and was caught. But regardless, we're looking at the state of Arizona has been looking at problems with the people and why they got in positions of power, and it's tied to cartels.
Well, I nominate Odin to be Arizona's Scott Pressler. I think he should move out here and just just flip the state red. I think. Yeah. I think so. Oh, we got one more super chat at the last minute. Fluffy Panda for $2. The only way to do Mass Effect right is to do it like Babylon 5. Well, we'll see. I wasn't as big a fan of Babylon 5 as some people are, but it wasn't too bad. Tom Connors Jr. from Midnight's Edge. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Well,
I like turtles.
And you can find me at Midnight's Edge After Dark, Midnight's Edge retrospectives, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you know the places. Mead Radio. All
right. And Culture Casino, thank you for being our Gary for this live stream.
You bet.
You definitely have a better beard than Mr.
No,
Nerdrotic.
I don't. Gary's beard is epic. I love Gary's beard.
Yes.
And
there will be no trash talking of the Gary.
Any final thoughts? Where can people find more of you, sir?
Yeah, check me out. Culture Casino on my YouTube channel, on Rumble, on Odyssey, on Minds, on Getter, and elsewhere. Although less on Odyssey because they stopped doing anything that helps me. I don't know why. But Twitter is where I love to interact with people. If you have ideas or thoughts, you can send them there to me. If you are not a premium person, just send me an email. I have an email. It's public on my channel.
Dude, how crazy was it that YouTube was shadow banning the Joe Rogan Trump episode, and so Elon put it up on Twitter and got him another like 60 million views or something like that?
Yeah, it's bizarre, right? And if you think about it, just one last thing to comment on why it's important to go on podcasts in the future if you're a candidate for office. Rogan got 100 million views off of 3 video appearances of 3 candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not technically, I guess Elon Musk wasn't a candidate, but you had Trump, Vance, and Musk. 100 million views on YouTube.
Just to say on top of that, shortly in this election cycle, he also had Tulsi Gabbard and Mr. Kennedy on there too, and RFK, and those I think those helped catapult them into Trump's circle. So
yeah, the whole team. Vivek was on there too, wasn't he?
Vivek was great. Holy cow. Dude, I'm telling you, the future looks bright, and I don't see any players in the future Any real bright spots?
You know who else we're missing out from the Trump camp was John Fetterman. He really helped Trump on
He
Joe
did
Rogan.
actually. He was like, "No, we need to secure the border."
1.5 million people suffered that in the first 4 days, and they seem to be better off for it somehow. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of better off, Brian from the Popcast.
Hey!
Any final thoughts? Where can people find more of you? And are you selling all your Disney stock?
Not yet. I gotta get to my average first. But I will get there. And when I get there, I'm selling it. And I'm not a financial advisor, but if you got stock and it's doing okay right now, or it's even, you probably need to put it in S&P 500 until everything starts to calm down before you start investing again, because that's a solid conservative stock.
I got to ask you a question, because if you're invested in entertainment companies, do you think Disney gets to retain their position as a blue chip in the Dow 30?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Yeah, I think that a big part of Disney. Look, I'm never investing in Disney again. Just to be clear, when I get out, I'm out for good, baby. But I do believe that a Trump administration is the stock market investors, brokers. They are confident in his ability to return the economy to a great state, which means that even businesses that are not doing good because of their own actions they're going to see growth in a positive direction because of that confidence. So I do believe that Disney, in the next couple of years, will get to my average, and I'll be able to pull out. And that's what she said.
But also, Brian, you're not doing the Brain Show this Saturday because you did it on Thursday, correct?
Yeah, there's no Brain Show today. We did our last Thursday show instead this last week. It'll be next week.
And speaking of not financial advice, I will say that 4 years ago, Bitcoin hit a high of $65,000. And this time around, it is now at an all-time high of over, I think, $73,000 or $75,000.
Yep, and I had Bitcoin. Thank
and
God.
to Mr. Butt's point, Doge, good place to invest in, because I do believe Elon Musk is probably going to do some stuff with crypto, and that's going to be his crypto of choice. So
I got about 20,000 Doge, and I was about to sell it when it actually went over my average, and I decided to keep it.
Mr. Butters, what is going on with Doge, and what's going on with the gaming channel?
Doge, I think, is at like 20 cents right now. It might be a little bit more, and so that's pretty fun. Over at Salty Nerd Gaming, we're doing our normal thing. We've got 2 podcasts a week. We got the Weekend Respawn, which just came out yesterday. We put that out every Friday. We might change that. I'm not sure what's going on there. But and then on Tuesdays, we have our Salt Divers podcast, which is all about the world of Hell Divers 2, which we would love and have a great time in every time we play it. Check us out over on our Discord at saltynerddiscord.com. That's where all of our gamer stuff is going on, and as well as stuff for this show, but it's kind of being taken over by the gaming community, but that's all good. I'm looking forward to the next 4 years, guys. It's going to be an interesting time for all of us. So
it is going to be an interesting time.
Just stay positive, and things are going to get good. So
we got one more last minute super chat under the wire. Abdullo for $5. Bethesda buying Fallout was the equivalent of Disney buying Star Wars. It's a shame most people only know the malformed version of the franchise. Yeah, that is a shame. But I want to give a big shout out to all of the people who contributed to our show today. We have Mephisto's movie reviews, The Mum, Foxhound, Decriminalize Adulthood, Darth Maul's Lower Half, Ufuk Dat Cow, Narasu 813, Philip A. Dimmick, Tonushi, Kalikioki, John Apocalypse, Randall Orser, Goran Falth, Mark Dolly, Fluffy Panda, the Astro Nerd Boy, and Abdullo. Also want to give a big shout out to our good friend R2, who just underwent surgery for treatment of a cancerous tumor. He made it through okay. We're all glad to hear about that. Prayers and thoughts with you, Mr. R2. I hope that you recover, and maybe we can have him on the show once he feels up to it or something along those lines. But tune in next week, same salty time, same salty channel for more Salty Saturdays with hopefully a Nerdrotic appearance, although don't hold your breath. He might cancel on us again. But appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. And as always, stay salty, my friends.